it on. Okay. Okay, so preparing for a virtual career fair. Again, welcome everyone. And I'm just going to jump right into this. My name is Shive Jones, and I'm the director of the Teacher Effectiveness and Preparation unit with the San Diego County Office of Education. And I have my wonderful partner with me today, Adina Sullivan Marlowe. She is a coordinator on the team who has been working tirelessly to collaborate with Alliant to bring the job fair, the career fair to everyone. So if you've been to any of our other presentations, you've probably gotten a couple of these slides, but I'm going to go ahead and just set a context for everyone in case you haven't been to any of our other presentations. Wanted to take a moment to just share a little bit about who we are. San Diego County Office of Education has its own schools. We have juvenile court and community schools. In addition, we support the 42 school districts in San Diego County in multiple ways, whether it's human resources, which is where my team lies, whether it's technology, business services, curriculum and instruction, student services. We do work with the 42 districts in San Diego County. Those 42 districts amount to 780 schools, 500,000 students. And in addition, there are also over 120 charter schools in San Diego County who are supported as well. And then we collaborate with the 5 community college districts around our region, as well as with all the universities. So that's a little bit about us as a county office and us as a team. What we want to make sure you come away with today is just know how to prepare for a virtual career fair. Understand career fair etiquette, because that could be that could spell the end of things for folks, or it could actually really help you stand out. So we'll talk a little bit about career fair etiquette, as well as we just want to make sure that you're prepared for successful interaction with potential employers, minimizing any frustration on anybody's end. So I want to start with the educator job market. This was really interesting thing that actually I just got my hands on today, some data for you. With the pandemic, there have been an unusually high number of retirements as well as resignations, and many schools don't have a safety net to fill the gap as kids come back to the classroom. And this is for whether it's a teaching position, a non-teaching position, and substitute teachers, which we'll hit on in a bit. Teaching has been one of the toughest pandemic era jobs, and with this pivot to remote learning, as well as the transition over to reopening, some folks are just saying, you know what, it's not worth it, or maybe I had some health issues before and I don't want to take the risk now, or this is far more than I signed up for. And the stress has just been really high, especially for those who are struggling with adapting to so much change. And as you all are probably aware of, new information is coming out every day, every week. Even with the planning of the reopenings, it's been changing so rapidly, and that can be very stressful. Teacher retirements up in Michigan, 44%. I could tell you in California, 1/3 of the teaching population was already at retirement age. So we were experiencing a teacher shortage a couple years ago is when it started for us here in California. So 73% of districts said their need for substitute teachers was more dire in 2020 than it was in 2019. In 2019, it was pretty dire. So you can imagine that right now there's even a greater need for substitute teachers. Applicants for sub positions have dropped. And I'm bringing up substitute teaching because, as I'll mention a little later, this is a great way to get your foot in the door. So it's something to consider. So some things to watch for is that schools really are hiring. So don't be discouraged. Sometimes I have folks ask me, well, I've heard about layoffs. Do you still think that they're going to hire? The answer is absolutely. There's a huge need for educators, again, both in teaching and non-teaching positions. So even though you have many districts that are that are recovering from the initial pandemic crash, in the teacher job market, the retirement is up. We know that candidates entering into teacher prep programs is down. And then we also have resignations up. All of this due to just our circumstances here. So that's actually pretty encouraging for all of you, even though it may sound like scary news. I do want to assure you that districts are doing everything that they can to open safely and are really considering the needs of not just students, but teachers as well, and making sure that everyone enters in safely back to the campuses. So the virtual job fair, the biggest thing is you want to be prepared when you attend the job fair. So there are some things that you could do between now and Wednesday. And I keep calling it a job fair. I should really call it a career fair. I do apologize. So prior to this, and look, I even put job fair right there in my bullet. Old habits. Research districts. It's really, really important. If you have certain districts that you're really interested in applying to, research them. Whether you meet them at the virtual career fair or not, this is a tip I would give anybody going to any kind of job fair and or even preparing for a job interview. Research the districts, create an EdJoin profile. And I'm going to go into details with all these in a moment. Apply to positions that you're interested in. Do all this prior to ever attending the career fair. Now, on the day of the career fair, you want to dress to impress. I realize that this is a virtual fair, but you still want to dress to impress. And then when you go to the different booths, you want to start with the districts that you've already applied to, and I'll explain why. Introduce yourself and let them know that you've applied to a position. And then be ready to offer a resume. So let's start with researching the districts. Think about the schools that you're interested in teaching. So is it a unified district? Are there specific elementary schools or high schools or middle schools that you want to apply to in that district? And when I say research the schools, I mean really get down into what is the school profile? What is their, it's called an LCAP plan, the local, my gosh, I just lost it. The local
control accountability.
Thank you. Local control accountability plan. Thank you. The LCAP plan. What you'll see in the LCAP will give you a sense of what the school's priorities are. And that's important because it gives you a context of what you're going into. And then it also allows you to just have a richer conversation when you're at that booth and kind of demonstrate that you've actually researched the school and you know a little bit about them. Also learn about the demographics. You know, what is their rate of free and reduced lunch? What are their numbers for English learners? You know, just what are the overall demographics? That's important to find out as well. And then their priorities, which you'll learn through the LCAP plan. And then if you're, this is particularly important, I think, if you're applying for a non-teaching position in a district, understand the hierarchy. So if you are applying for I'll just say an IT type of position, is that position in the business department? Is it in the technology department? Is it in student services? Because every department may have their own person, or that person may be housed in one department. So just understand the hierarchy and what department that position is in, and get a sense of just what that department looks like. And then lastly, this is for a teaching position. If you can, get a sense of what the adopted curriculum is. So if I'm teaching math, for instance, do I know what textbooks they're using for algebra or geometry or whatever positions it is that I'm applying to? If it's in an elementary school that I'm applying to, do I know what reading program they lean towards? Again, these are important because these are things that you can talk about when you go to the booth, and these are also things that will give you a better sense of how to answer interview questions if you get an interview question or get an interview, sorry. Any questions about researching the district?
I do. I have a question.
Yes.
Whitney, is there actually a list of districts that are going, or is it just kind of like widely known that most districts are going to be going to the job fair, or do we just not have that information?
That is actually a really good question, and I would have asked the same one. So Adina is our logistics person. I'm going to hand it off. I'm going to put her on the spot and hand it off to her.
Yes, so it's an excellent question, but it's a bit of a challenge because there are districts that have signed up. It is not by any means the majority of districts in the county. It's a combination of districts and charter schools that are signed up. But one of the challenges is sometimes they sign up and we don't know for sure if they're going to attend until the very last minute. Some of them may be doing some initial hiring already right now, and they'll decide, okay, we've already filled the ones we want to filter right now and not come to the fair. Or they may decide the last minute, yes, we do want to go. So I don't have an exact list because that's sort of still in flux, and there's some we're still waiting to see if they're actually going to complete their booth or not for the fair.
Thank you.
And Adina, do you know if Alliant said they were going to provide a list to registrants?
I do not know that.
No? Okay.
If I can interject, sorry.
Yes,
There is a flyer online that I was referring to that has a list.
Oh, good.
Yeah, just keep in mind that list is very much subject to change.
And Athena, you wouldn't by any chance have a link to that flyer, would you? That you
Yeah,
could
I
drop
can
in
go
the
ahead
chat?
and send, I can put it in the chat.
Thank you. At least it's a good starting point, but certainly it can change. And we have had even in-person in-person job fairs where even though a majority of the districts and schools who register attend, we've had some cases where one or two have not attended. And so that's why it's important for us to say it is subject to change. We can't guarantee, but it certainly is a good starting point for you to start doing your research. If you don't see a district on that list, then very likely they will not be at the job fair. That much we do know. Donia, you have your hand up?
Yes. Regarding to what you mentioned about searching the books, like I don't know how to find out what books they are using for math, like for example.
Sure. So what you would do, it always starts with the district's website. So I'll just throw out a district, say I want to teach in, I'll use Escondido High School District. That's the district I taught in. So I would go to the district's website, and the adopted curriculum is adopted district-wide. It's not school by school. So what I would do from there is search under departments usually, and I'll find the department for curriculum and instruction, and then just start digging around and see what I can find. So that would be the quickest, easiest way to find out. You can always be an anonymous caller and just call the district and ask them as well. Yeah, no problem. Thank you. These are really great questions. I appreciate you all being brave enough to ask them. Any other questions? Okay, then I'm going to jump ahead to EdJoin. Oh, there we go. Okay, so EdJoin. You definitely want to create an EdJoin profile. Adina did a webinar last week actually on EdJoin, how to set up your profile and do searches and apply to positions there. So there's the link for that. And I think we also have our presentation in the chat. So we'll drop the presentation in the chat in a moment as well, so that you can have that link.
Yep, if you go to bit.ly.edu career videos, you'll see the recording from that session along with our other playlist of career fair videos.
Thanks, Adina. So you want to create an EdJoin profile. Research the openings that are there. The reason you want to create an EdJoin profile is that when you go to any career fair, whether it's in person or virtually, oftentimes the person that you speak to is going to say, well, you can find such and such opening on our web on EdJoin, so go to EdJoin and apply for the position. How great would it be if you already had your profile set up and you just go right on and hit apply? That way you could follow up with the person from the booth in a thank you email and let them know, remind them that you chatted, they invited you to apply, and you did that. So make sure you create your EdJoin profile. Research openings. Maybe there's a district you really want to work in. You heard that there may be some retirements, and so you should check EdJoin and see whether or not they have any openings there. I will say that San Diego Unified posts their openings on EdJoin as well, but San Diego Unified has their own site for applications. So if you are really interested in applying to San Diego Unified, be sure that you check their website and build out your profile for their website. That's an important one to know. But still research the openings. And then one of the tips that I like to suggest is that you adapt your resume and cover letter specific to the opening. So for instance, if a position you notice in a job description, it says something like we're looking for a team player, then you really want to emphasize what a team player you are in your cover letter and maybe even share an example or two. Or maybe you add a couple bullet points in your resume of different things you've done. For example, in a past life, I did curriculum writing for my department. So I would make sure that in there, I say I worked as part of a team or I collaborated as part of a team to develop such and such curriculum. Okay. And then of course, apply to the positions. It would be very beneficial to you if there are positions already available that you apply to them so that when you go to the booth on the day of the career fair, you can say, hello, this is who I am. I wanted to let you know I applied to such and such position. So now they could put a name and a personality to the position that you may have applied to. Now, on the day of the career fair, remember that first impressions, whether it's in person, whether it's virtual, are very important. I think sometimes there's a sense of anonymity being online, especially if people can't see our faces. But they know who you are, you've registered, your name still pops up on the screen. So you want to make sure that you make a good first impression when you attend the career fair. So one thing I would say, even though this is not highly likely, there's always a small probability that the district may want to meet you via Zoom. They might possibly invite you to an interview. So I bet you all didn't know I'm wearing slippers right now because my hair is still done up. I'm still wearing makeup, and from waist up, actually, I'm even wearing nice pants, but I am wearing comfortable shoes that I would never wear to a career fair, let alone to work, unless if it was pajama day. So just make sure that this looks very professional. How would you dress if you were in person? What would you want people to see? And that's really what you want to think about when you attend the virtual job fair, career fair. So for men, that might mean a shirt and tie. For women, it might mean a nice top with a blazer or just a nice top. And then minimize distractions such as large jewelry or crazy background. I've noticed that in this world of Zoom, I tend to get distracted very quickly by what I see on the screen versus when I'm in person with someone and they come into the conference room and I've been sitting in the conference room. I know this conference room. I'm not going to be looking around distracted by what's in the conference room. But not so much in a Zoom kind of environment. So just minimize those distractions. And I say large jewelry because if you were like me and you talk with your hands, and I usually wear a lot of bangles, but if you notice, I'm not wearing bangles today. I have somebody on my team actually who's very sensitive to noise. And when I start to move my hands, she gets distracted by that because of the bangles. And of course, being in a virtual setting as well, you probably know, depending on whether or not you have a microphone, any additional noise might muffle your voice out. So something to keep in mind with that. Now, you also want to make sure that you begin with focus. And when I say that, I mean start with the districts that you applied to. Start with those. Those are the ones that you're really interested in. It's the beginning of this 3-hour event. The folks hosting the booths are going to have a little more energy at the beginning of the event versus at the end of the event when they've been answering the same questions over and over and over again. So I guess what I should really add here too is the event starts at 3:30. Would probably get in there by, Adina, wouldn't you say, by 3:45, like closer to the early side? And focus in on the ones that you applied to or the ones that you're really interested in, that you've done research on. And then when you introduce yourself, speak to what sets you apart from others. So it may be things like you have extensive experience in a hybrid learning environment. It could be that you're bilingual. It could be that math is a strength. Think about what really sets you apart from others, which is also something you would highlight in an interview. Um, and again, what sets you apart from others for that district is going to depend on what you learn about that district when you do your research. And I'm not saying that you're making things up, but when we read information about districts, we can start to make connections with why we would be such an asset to that district as we start to learn more about them. And offer your resume. So make sure you have your resume on your desktop and you're ready to share that resume. In the in-person career fair, what I've seen is that they actually will collect the resumes and then they go back later and they review all the resumes and compare it against the openings that they have. I didn't realize that I've been talking so much. I'm going to go a little faster because our 30 minutes are up. So if you have to leave, you can. Don't feel like you have to stay, but I need about 5 more minutes. So what I do want to say about the beginning with focus as well, last year we did our first virtual job fair and we saw some really poor etiquette. And I actually wrote a couple names down because I thought, I'm not sure that this is someone who, if they reached out to me, I could not tell them, hey, these are the things that you really need to focus on next time when you go into a job fair. So one was, person comes in and they blast out a message to everyone, are you hiring? These are my qualifications. And everyone at the virtual career fair got it. Versus, hey, I noticed you have this opening. This is my background. Do you think I should apply? Does that align? So it was more of a just a, are you hiring? Well, that tells me you didn't do any research. And I don't know how badly you want to be in my district versus you're just desperate and you're asking everybody that. Okay, so that was one. The other one was just asking questions that could have easily been answered through any research. So, very last thing that I want to just say is I've had people ask, will I get a job if I go to the job fair or the career fair? The answer is that this is really a networking opportunity. Even though some folks come away and they get a position, it's rare. Oftentimes, this is about you and the person at the booth making the connection. Usually, the person at the booth is either a recruiter who does all the screening for the school or the district, or it could be the assistant superintendent of human resources or the director of human resources. And in some cases, it may even be the site principal. So there is a possibility of an interview, but there's also a better possibility that you'd be invited to an interview afterwards. So I'm going to, these are just some quick reminders that the paper gets you an interview, the interview gets you a job, and your job performance keeps you employed. So there are a few steps to this process. And I'm just going to rush through these because I will be going over these in tomorrow's presentation anyways for interviews. So what I do want to just let you know is this is what the career fair looks like. You're going to come in and Adina, I'm going to hand it off to you.
All righty, so you'll go to the same website where you registered for the fair and log in using your email and password that you set up when you registered. And as you scroll down, you'll see, you can go to two different places. You can either scroll down from the main page or over on the left, see those little lines. You'll click there and go to the main pavilion, Pavilion A, and you'll see all the different schools, all the different booths that are available at the event. When you click on one of those, you will get to their little virtual booth. So this is the booth for our team. And within that booth, you'll see different links. There'll be information about the organization itself, maybe some videos or links or the social media links. There may be some next steps, and next steps, if they've chosen to use that, those could be positions that they want to highlight at that time. And then at the bottom right, you'll see a little place to click for chat. And that'll open up to this image that's at the very bottom. And you can chat with the booth in general. You can also choose a particular person in that booth if you wanted to ask a specific question. One thing Shiva was talking about, poor etiquette that we have seen, you definitely don't want to private message everybody in the booth the exact same question. They do notice that. But if there's someone you're like, oh, this person clearly has a position that makes sense that I want to ask this question to, please go ahead and do that. They can share documents with you in the chat. You can share documents as well. So even though you uploaded your resume when you registered for the fair, you could, if it's appropriate, add it there as well. And so that's a place for you to get to kind of talk to them and ask those specific questions you have about that position or what they might have available or what have you. And then you can go to the next one. You don't have to be in the same booth the whole time. If you've made your connection, you got your question answered, head off to another booth, make sure you get a chance to talk to anyone you might even think you would want to talk to, make a good impression on for the fair.
Thank you, Adina. So I had mentioned earlier substitute teaching and substitute non-teaching. Remember that, or just know that being a sub is really a great way to just get your foot in the door. It's like a long-term job interview or an audition. So you might want to consider being open to subbing. Sometimes a sub ends up getting hired in the school or the district. If you were interested in subbing, you would apply to each district individually. You want to make sure that as a sub, you go above and beyond, you meet the school secretary, and you leave a detailed note for the teacher. So my final tip for you is that when you attend the virtual career fair, make sure that you make note of who you spoke to at each booth and do a follow-up thank you to them with a copy of your resume. And jog their memory, which is another reason why you want to have that statement of what sets you apart from other applicants. So, hi, remember me? I was the one who, I don't know, is bilingual, really good at math, and I've been teaching in a hybrid world forever. I'm a unicorn, and here's my resume. Thank you for your time. And email is fine. Don't worry about snail mail. Sending an email is just fine in a case like that. So that would be, oh, and good question, Andrea. What if we're receiving our teaching credential at the end of this semester? A lot of districts require you to have your credential, not when you're applying, they require that you have your credential by your start date. So it is completely fine if you don't already have your credential. You just let them know when you anticipate completing your program and when you anticipate getting your credential. One last tip, if you really want to go into a teaching position and maybe you don't have the credential, but say you have a multiple subject credential and you're really interested, you're very flexible and you wouldn't mind working with students with special needs, you might want to consider letting the district know that you would be happy to work in a special ed classroom as well. That would open you up for possibly being hired as an intern, even though it would require you to go back to school. If you already have a credential, you're intern eligible, which means you don't have to take prerequisite courses and you don't have to take the CSAT exam. So something to bear in mind. So let me see, can you give an example of a good question for the end of the interview? Fiona, great question. Come to our presentation tomorrow on interviews.
Okay.
I will share that with you. I have
the teaser.
Teaser, that's right.
Okay.
Let me see what else. How should I discuss my need to have to complete induction? I only have my preliminary. Okay, Anthony, that's a great question and also something you should come to our presentation on tomorrow. We'll talk about induction as well. We happen to run an induction program and we're very familiar with induction requirements. Does the same advice apply for bilingual authorization? For example, I've taken Spanish CSETs 1, 2, and 3, and I'm working on CSET 4 to add the authorization. Yes, Ilana, I would bring that up for certain because if you're going to have that before they hire you, that would be important for them to know. And the fact that you've already made such an effort to get as far as you have. Gosh, I wish I had more time. These are great questions. And I have nothing else to do at 4:10 p.m. other than entertain 30 plus other people. I do appreciate your time though, and we very much look forward to seeing all of you